Yo, what's up, duelists? Yesterday was RBET rulers. I'm sure most of you guys are itching for the top 8 deck lists. We're going to get to that in just a second, but if you are like me and you don't like spoilers and you want to watch the event in its entirety, check out the live tab on my channel. You can watch the full event, 8 hours of the best Edison gameplay you've ever seen. These players had to get an invite by topping an RBET or a qualifying event, so these are literally the best Edison players in the world, playing a whole wide variety of strategies, tons of different decks. Let's get into the meta breakdown courtesy of Diamond Dude. This was the meta breakdown for this event. Blackwings was the number one most played deck, but Blackwings did not really perform that well at this event. We'll get into that in a second. A lot of other decks appeared for maybe the first time, and some decks that maybe we expected to see didn't show up. We didn't see a single Gladiator Beast deck list. Only one player, this is the other by the way, only one player played Fairies, which is insane considering the Blackwing matchup. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, that one player did top. Fairies has an incredibly good Blackwing matchup, and when almost a quarter of the field is playing Blackwings, it's the best deck in the room by far. So yeah, we will get into that. We'll get into that in the top 8 deck lists. One last thing, if you guys want all of these deck lists, there's going to be a lot of decks in here that people are like, wow, I really wanted to see what so and so played, or what this guy played, or what this person played, or whatever. I'm going to be uploading every single one of these deck lists to the Really Big Yu-Gi-Oh Discord. So if you join the Really Big Yu-Gi-Oh Discord in the description below, I'll be posting a zip file with every single one of the deck lists from these events from this event, because every single one of this deck list is good. It's from a solid player. It's from like a strong duelist who had to top in order to get into this event. And I feel like that sort of stuff should be made available to you guys. So everybody's going to get all the deck lists for this one. Yeah, let's get into the top 8 deck list, though, because that's the point of this video. All right. I lost connection. It's too late. It's over. I got to log back in. Shout out Dueling Book for kicking me off, for being away for like 5 seconds. This is not one of the top 8 deck lists. This is just, oh my gosh, this is so unprofessional. But you know what? That's just how we do it. Let's get into 6th place. So the way double elimination works is there's 2 6th place deck lists, there's 2 5th place deck lists, and then there's 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, basically. So the first 6th place deck list was the only Blackwing deck in top 8. Out of 15 players entering with Blackwings, only one made it to top 8. This list is very interesting. He's got the 1 compulsory, he's got triple D Prism, 1 oppression in the main, no torrential in the main deck Dust Tornado, main deck Book of Moon, electing only the 1 Vayu. The sideboard has a lot of monsters, a little bit more monsters than we're used to seeing, but no Cyber Dragon, which I think is interesting because he has Chimera Tech in the extra deck. If you have Chimera Tech in the extra deck, it's kind of like maybe you should cut this. There are definitely some synchro options that this deck can take advantage of, namely Armory Arm or Red Dragon Archfiend are the first 2 that come to mind, but even something like the 2nd Stardust Dragon or Gaia Knight can also come up, or even the 2nd Armor Master, which was not included here. Even something like Urbellum, we'll get into that later in the top 8 deck breakdown, could have been included over the Chimera Tech, but maybe didn't want to get caught with his pants down against Cyber Dragon plus a machine in play. Interesting stuff from Pretty Boy. This is his first major event appearance, I believe. He obviously topped in RBET last year, but this is the top dogs. We still talk about the RBET Rulers top 8 players from last year, and we're going to talk about the RBET Rulers top 8 players from this year for a while, because these are the best of the best. These are the people who are out here doing it better than anybody else. So very solid list. Nothing really much to say about it that we haven't said about Blackwing lists in the past. I do really like the compulsory evacuation device tech. This card was kind of story of the tournament. It's in a lot of the successful deck lists. We predicted it in the RBET prediction list that it would be either the number 1 or number 2 most represented tech card in the tournament. Fossil Dyna being the number 2 most represented tech card, and we were not wrong. We were not wrong. Compulsory evacuation device kind of taking this tournament by storm, showing off the offensive prowess of a card it's a little bit more versatile, right? It can deal with big monsters once they've already resolved, stuff like Catastor, Absolute Zero, Stardust. It can deal with defensive threats like a Set Raikou that's in your way from pushing damage. So it's got 2 different applications there, and then it's got a secret third application where it can actually protect some of your own monsters. Let's say you summon, I don't know, your Sirocco into a bottomless trap hole, or maybe you're going for a big play where you go normal Blizzard, special back Bora, your opponent tries to bottomless your Bora, you can compulse the Bora back to your hand and special it and continue with your play. So it helps you play through back row as well, which is really really interesting use of the card. Very versatile. Seeing one of in a lot of decks is probably something we'll see a lot of moving forward. Congratulations to Pretty Boy Pro. Very solid stuff. He definitely has everything that you expect to see in the sideboard here. He even does have that Thunder King Ryo as a little bit of respect to all of the Dragon Turbo that we kind of expected to see in this tournament. All right, moving on to the next 6th place list. It was the one player who was brave enough to enter with Fairies, and that is Carpath. Absolute Giga Chad, running it back with his exact 55 card first place deck list from DDV3, or that earned him his invite. Of course, Carpath is going to be going over this deck list and his choices a lot more on his channel. I'd say definitely check him out. Search Carpath Edison on YouTube. I'm sure it'll come up. Very, very powerful duelist. One of the biggest deck building innovators of our time. He basically invented Amaryllis Burn. He invented or innovated this Chaos Fairy sort of list with Sky Scourge Enrise. He invented, he topped last year RBET with Neospatians, being the first person to top a tournament, a premier level tournament with that deck. And this list is nothing short of genius. I mean, it's a really solid list. Triple Dimensional Alchemist to let you reuse Battle Fader or any monster you banish with Chaos Sorcerer, Sky Scourge Enrise. Royal Decree is an absolute lights out card versus Blackwings. There is a match of him on stream demonstrating the power of Royal Decree in that matchup. Definitely watch the stream to see how this deck functions if there's some stuff you're a little bit confused about. He's got the Mind Control Cyber Valley tech. We were kind of reflecting on this before the tournament in the EdisonFormat.com Discord. This tech is present in every single successful Fairy list, and this top 8 list notwithstanding, you know what I mean? It's got the Mind Control Cyber Valley tech, which is a tech that I innovated with Pro Storm last year before his first place finish with Fairies in last year's tournament, and that was kind of like the highlight of the thing. This deck is very solid. I mean, it has everything you could possibly want from a deck list. It's got Triple Kaya, it's got Christias, it's got Honest, it's got Hand Traps, it's got Gore's Trag, Fader. You know, like it's just a really solid deck list. There's very few like cards in this deck that are like, yeah, that's a bad card. I feel like every single card in this deck you look at it and you're like, yep, that's a good card. Like it's just 40 really strong cards. And then the sideboard has stuff that you need for the matchups that you lose in, which is triple Electric Virus for Dragons. Carpath correctly identifies that this deck has trouble with Kwakimero Drago, and the best way to deal with that is by taking it with Electric Virus and then letting it die in the end phase. Yeah, really solid stuff. Shout out to Carpath. He's one of my biggest inspirations as a player, and I'm very proud of him for topping this tournament with one of his own creations, uncompromising, not listening to the doubters, not listening to the haters, pulling up with Fairies, recognizing that it is one of the best decks in the format, being the only person to do it at a tournament and making it all the way to top 8 is just very impressive. All right, moving on. 5th place, we have Turna. Turna is playing Vayu Turbo. Now, some of you guys may know Turna. I believe Turna is a very popular Hearthstone streamer, showing dexterity in multiple games. An Italian player. Shout out Italy. Shout out all the Italian players. Turna really representing for his region as well, showing off the strength of all the Italian players with this demonstration of Vayu Turbo greatness. A lot of people are really liking this deck right now. This is one of the most popular decks. I believe it was the second most popular deck in this tournament, next to Blackwings, by a differential of about 100%. But you know, hey, you know that's it's still a very popular deck. He's playing all the stuff you expect to see in this type of deck, plus Return. He's got that Return Chaos Sorcerer tech. This is the first person, I believe, to have tournament success with both Return and Chaos Sorcerer in this deck. Return is interesting. It can bring back Vayu Sirocco to give you those big OTK pushes. Like you can make an Armed Wing and then return back Sirocco Vayu and then pump up your guy, or just swing a lot, or do what you can with that. Can also bring back Necrogarden of Plague, or stuff that you banish with Dark Armed, or stuff that you've slammed into Deep Prison or whatnot. It's just a power card. And what I think this deck lacks, in my opinion, is power cards. And just adding that extra sauce, that extra juice, so that some plays you can have, or not some plays, some games where you maybe don't see Burial Dad, which are the 2 power cards, you have a third power card, which just auto-wins, which is Return. I think that's very important. So I think it's a solid inclusion from Turna. It does conflict a little bit with Royal Oppression, and it can conflict post-board games with stuff like, you know, Fossil Dyna and whatnot, but I think it's just so good that you kind of have to include it. The sideboard is really interesting, just electing to go for 3 of all the best cards, 3 Pulling, 3 Deck Dev, 3 Dust Tornado, 1 Oppression to round out the full legal copies, 1 Starlight Road for the Blackwing matchup, Mind Control to steal hamsters and Raikos, 2 Dynas to stop special summons from decks like Frogs, and just a random Crow. I'm not really sure I'm a big fan of the random Crow, but it is just a coverage card, and maybe it worked for his sideboard plans. You'll notice he was not on Cyber Dragon at all, which is something that I find a little bit unique, because normally when you're playing Chaos Sorcerer, you do want those extra lights. This deck really does only have 5 lights. It has Charge, Hamster, and 3 Raikos, and that's it, really. If you don't have one of those lights, then Chaos Sorcerer is a card that's going to be dead. So I think maybe not having Cyber Dragons, it worked out well for Turna, but it's definitely something that you should probably consider. I think the original version of this list that Arc had drawn up from SJC Edison had Cyber Dragons even in the main. So food for thought. Chaos Sorcerer is definitely a power card. It's definitely slotting in over the 3rd Caius. It's a little bit quicker than Caius because it doesn't take your normal summon and doesn't require having a monster in play in order to summon it. But yeah, solid stuff. Shout out to Turna for his appearance here. He earned his invite from the Italian National Championship, which was a massive in-person Edison format tournament that was an RBET qualifier to make sure that the region of the Italy region has had enough ways to earn invites to this, basically. So yeah, shout out to Turna. I'm pretty sure that's where he got his top. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. My memory with tops is sometimes a little bit difficult. But yeah, shout out to Turna. Check him out on Twitch if you like Hearthstone and that sort of stuff. The next 5th place list is Batel. Batel playing Diva Hero Beat. This was the only Diva Hero Beat player out of the 6 players to make it into the... Where the hell is that shit? Out of the 6 players to make it into the top cut. And just very standard, straightforward list. 1 Dust Tornado in the main. This card put in a lot of work. And 1 Skill Drain in the main. We were actually talking about this literally the night before the tournament in the Hero Beat channel. Fraser Smith and I were talking about this, discussing Skill Drain. And basically what we were saying is, like, the deck kind of needs Skill Drain, or it needs Royal Oppression. It needs that free win edge in order to have that advantage over, like, other decks. And I think opting to main deck Skill Drain is a very, very smart decision from Batel. I think it's a role that the deck kind of was lacking, that sort of floodgate, auto win sort of role. The card has applications versus everything. It rarely hurts your own deck. It doesn't really stop Absolute Zero. It doesn't really stop the Alias beats. Once you've resolved Stratos and Diva, Skill Drain is pretty much like one-sided floodgate, negating all effects. And it has a lot of applications in a lot of, like, what I would say bad matchups for this deck, like Fairy and Quick Draw. The decks that are kind of harder for this deck to outgrind, Skill Drain puts in a lot of work there. So I think that's a great inclusion from Batel here. Very, very smart tech choice. He's got Snowman Eater in the side. He's got 1 Cyber Dragon in the side. Just in order to make room for a lot of these techs. Once again, that 1 compulsory evacuation device finding its way into the main deck. Like I said, 1 compulsory, it's probably going to be sort of a standard trap lineup inclusion in these very trap-heavy decks. The reason players play the 1 compulsory as opposed to multiples is because this card has diminishing returns. If you draw 2 of them, it's very unlikely that the second one will get the full value that the first one got. It's just the nature of Edison format. If your opponent synchros once and gets compulsoried, they're going to be less likely to synchro again, just because they might not have the resources to make that synchro play twice, sort of thing. And then also, like, it's just a utility card, basically. It's just like kind of slotting in where a lot of players used to play Book of Moon, more or less. It also deals with Absolute Zero, and then once you've put Absolute Zero back in the extra deck with compulsory, the second one might not have as great of a target because they might not have a water or a hero from that point to activate a second miracle. So yeah, pretty solid stuff. Pretty standard lineup. The Skill Drain, the compulsory, and the Dust Tornado are, I think, fantastic tech choices. The sideboard looks very fantastic. You love to see 7 Tools of the Bandit. This card is just awesome. A Metal Raiders classic. He's got the Shadow Mirror. No light mirrors in the sideboard. Basically no respect for fairies. He did face off against Carpath, I believe, in top 8, and his opening hand was ungodly. I think game 1, Carpath took it pretty convincingly, and then game 2 and game 3, he had Future Fusion double Miracle Dyna both times, which is, yeah, that's one hell of a way to take down a very difficult matchup, is with the crazy power plays from Future Fusion and Miracle Fusion, and Future Fusion is just an insanely powerful card, notwithstanding in this deck as well. Even though it's not at its best in this deck, it is still one of the best cards in the format, if not the best single card to open in the format. Moving on to top 4, just want to say thank you guys for an amazing season. Thank you guys, everyone who turned up to an IRL RBET this season. I'm going to have more IRL RBETs next year than I had this year, a few more than I had this year. I'm going to be making an announcement with all of the tournament dates for next year at the end of December. So make sure you're subscribed. If you want to participate in these tournaments, make sure you're in the Discord. Make sure you're participating in your local community, testing and getting the edge on your opponents in whatever way it takes. All right, moving on to the top four, we got Zabo. Zabo, very powerful IRL player. And I know I just had a whole spiel about compulsory evacuation device, only playing one, but he was playing 2 copies of it. This list is very unique. This is an Instant Fusion Zombies deck list, Instant Fusion Tele Zombies. This deck aims to abuse Book of Life a lot more than it does aim to abuse cards like Deep Sea Diva in the alternative zombie lists that we've seen have success in the past. It uses Instant Fusion to fusion summon either Carbonella Warrior or Reaper on the Nightmare, and then you can utilize one of these 2 fusions to make a powerful synchro with your tuners or to sacrifice them for Caius. And then once that Reaper on the Nightmare does hit the graveyard, because Instant Fusion is a proper fusion summon, you can Book of Life it back or you can Mizuki it back, and you can use it to attack your opponent directly and gain card advantage that way. This card is incredibly powerful, and just having that sort of like access to it is really nice. This is an innovation that a couple of players have been working on this season. It didn't really have RBET success until now, but I expect to see a lot more of this sort of instant zombie list moving forward, just because of the speed it provides for the deck and how quickly it gets you set up for playing the best card I think Zombies has access to, which is Book of Life. This card is incredibly powerful in the format. It's very good versus Vayu Turbo, Frogs. It's even decent versus Blackwings at disrupting their graveyards, shutting off their Vayu plays. It's great against Hero Beat. It was great against Hero Beat for him in the top 8. It forced Solemn Judgment. It forced all sorts of stuff throughout the tournament for him, and it got him a top 4 finish in one of the most, if not the most stacked tournament of all time. Really, really cool deck list. I am looking forward to trying this deck list. Triple Pyramid Turtle because it is a zombie for Book of Life. Foregoing that Mystic Tomato because you just want to have zombie ASAP for Book of Life. Makes perfect sense to me. Not playing Mind Control, which is a card that I felt in zombie decks is very powerful in the past, especially with 5 tuners. I feel like not playing Mind Control anywhere is possibly an oversight, but maybe he's just saying, fuck it, I don't need it. He's also not playing Allure of Darkness, which is another card that a lot of zombie players would consider to be staple. He's also not playing, what is the card? Burial from a Different Dimension. Electing to go for Return. I think that is more common than not. Most players do not play Burial in Zombies because oftentimes it functions as like a 4th Book of Life that's like kind of worse. At most, you're like putting back Mizuki. Sometimes you get to put back Plague too, but usually it's just putting back Mizuki as like a jank Book of Life. So it's like kind of worse than Call of the Haunted in a lot of ways. It can deal with Drill Warrior if you're having trouble with Quick Draw, but as you can see from the meta breakdown, there were only 2 Quick Draw Dandy decks in the entire tournament. One of them finished just outside of top 8, but as you can tell, it did not cause Zabo any problems in reaching top 4 status. Really unique deck list. I love the design on it. Double Trap Stun to help deal with all of the Blackwings. Very nice. Trap Stun's a great way to punish Royal Oppression, Icarus Attack, all sorts of stuff. Trap Stun is particularly devastating in this deck versus Royal Oppression because if your opponent goes for Royal Oppression, you chain Trap Stun, it doesn't remove the Royal Oppression for play. So when you summon your Synchro monsters, like let's say you go for that classic Bryo Goyo zombie synchro play, right? You chain Trap Stun to their Oppression, and then on their turn, the Oppression is no longer negated. They're all of a sudden facing down 2 synchros, and they're locked under their own Oppression. So really unique use of tech here from Zabo. And then one last card I do want to point out is the use of Psychic Life Transfer. If you want to see a card put in a shitload of work, go watch his matches that happened on stream. This card was insane on camera. This card, as well as X-Saber Urbellum, utilizing some of the least utilized synchros in the format to have very real like upside. I don't know how to say it, but he used these cards to the fullest effect I've ever seen anyone use these cards. This was an RBET top 8 first for Psychic Life Transfer. So put that on your calendar or whatever. I'll probably have this card in the clickbait. I love the artwork on this card. It is one of my favorite artworks on any synchro monster ever. It's cool because it's got that type of like kind of cursed doll aesthetic that Dark Necrofear has. And it's also got like a really, really awesome color scheme and like sort of biotech, like very on theme for the psychic monsters that came out in the Duelist Genesis. Really, really sick card. Shout out to Zabo for making it all the way to top 4. Third place, Diego, aka Pina 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 Pina. One of the most powerful frog duelists to ever do it. Showed up with Hero Frogs. This was a deck that I ranked very highly in my predictions video. I said that there would probably be a lot of Hero Frogs. Was I right about that? No, there was only 4, but 4 is still like the 5th or 6th most played deck in an incredibly diverse metagame. So, you know what? All right. Making it all the way to 3rd, kind of with an underrepresented deck. And yeah, really solid stuff. This looks like kind of exactly what you'd expect from the deck. A few more trap cards than we've seen in previous lists, but the Threatening Roars put in a lot of work for him throughout the tournament. So did the Regeki Breaks. The enemy controller was fantastic. All of his tech choices were really good. He had the double fader. Sometimes people like playing 3 faders in this list. I personally think that somewhere between 2 to 3 is correct. Sideboard, very unique. Lots of 1-ofs and a heavy, heavy trap lineup in the sideboard. He was siding in like 5 removal traps. People are just going to side out their heavy and Typhoon. And all of a sudden they're looking at a deck with like 12 trap cards that they have to play through, and they don't have heavy Typhoon. It's just very difficult to press through that if you've sided in a certain way. That being said, it does kind of shut off your core game plan of using Treeborn Frog to net advantage. I do like that he's gone down to 2 Swap Frogs, especially because he's on such a heavy trap lineup. Swap Frog might not be as necessary because you have a lot of time, thanks to the trap cards, to find your Treeborn Frogs. I think this is an inclusion that a lot of Frog players at first kind of thought was like a crazy inclusion, and then I was like, no, you can cut a Swap Frog. Like, you don't need the full 6 ways to find Treeborn Frog, especially if your deck has like other starters like Stratos. And then I noticed after I had adapted it in the Relinquished Frog deck, Raunik adapted it in the his Ancient Gear Frog deck, and I think we'll see more and more 2 Swap Frog, like mini Frog engines moving forward. I've even seen some lists of Quick Draw like teching a Swap Frog to just act as an extra Foolish Burial for their Treeborn Frog, and a way to like reuse Caiuses and stuff. It's kind of interesting. It also helps in Quick Draw to reuse Hamsters or reuse like one-shot effects like Breakers and Postboard. It's an interesting card that I think we haven't really fully explored the implications of teching Swap Frog or having not a full Frog engine in some lists. It acts as sort of, I don't know if you guys have played later formats, but Mist Valley Falcon is an incredibly powerful card. And Swap Frog is kind of a light Mist Valley Falcon. It can help you reuse some powerful monster effects. So, just to continue on the deck building theory here at plays, nothing is a sacred cow in Edison format. You can kind of do whatever the hell you want, as long as it kind of fits the concept of your playstyle and what it is you're trying to accomplish with your deck. And I think Diego did a great job with this list, making it all the way to 3rd place in one of the most stacked tournaments of all time. I still remember Diego's comments on the videos way early of like 2020 when he's like, Frogs are the best deck, and here he is out here proving it. So pretty cool stuff from Diego. Shout out to him for making it all the way to 3rd place here. Second place was RBET Moval winner Celia Bot, making it all the way to 2nd place with a very similar deck list to the RBET Moreno Valley 1st place list. Celibot, one of the most powerful Dragon Turbo players out there to date. Celibot defeated Ghost Rider in the Dragon Turbo Mirror in this tournament. So there was an RBET winner clash between the 2 Dragon Turbo experts, I would say. And Celibot came out on top and made it all the way to 2nd place. Dragon Turbo was my pick to win this event. So my predictions were not entirely off. It did make it all the way to 2nd place. I think this deck is incredibly good. I think a lot of people disrespect this strategy. I think a lot of people don't view it as that real. And if you look at the meta breakdown, I understand that. I understand that to a degree. There was only 2 Dragon Turbo players in the entire tournament, Ghost Rider and Celibot, and you can kind of just hope to dodge it. But if your goal is to win a tournament, and there are Dragon Turbo players in the tournament, you have to have some sort of game plan for this deck because you are going to see it in top 8. I think it's just that good of a deck that, like, if it's at the tournament and the player who's playing it is good, it will probably top that tournament. It's just too powerful of a deck. Yes, it can brick. We did see him open triple blue eyes in one game on camera, but as it stands, I mean, like, the deck is nothing but gas. Super Rejuvenation is incredibly powerful. Reckless Greed is crazy when drawn in multiples. Gore's Trag helps you buy the time you need in order to get your engine going. And then once the engine is going, there really is nothing like it in the format. There's nothing that can, like, draw 18 cards in a turn like this deck can. So definitely a deck I think more and more people should respect. I've made guides on how to play against it, how to side against it on the channel. Make sure and check those out if you guys are having trouble with this matchup. But if you guys also want to continue to not respect it and just want to try and dodge, then go for it. Just know that you'll probably be facing off against one of the more powerful Dragon Turbo opponents at some point in the top cut, and they may just destroy you because you don't have a plan for it. Sideboard, very interesting. I like the use of Forbidden Chalice as a way to sort of cover Fossil Dyna. Forbidden Chalice has a hidden application where you can establish a board. Your opponent will set a Fossil Dyna to try and out your established board, and you can actually use this to respond to the Dyna's effect from hand in... well, I think you have to do it before the Dyna activates, if I remember correctly. You attack into Dyna, it'll flip face up, and then you can Chalice it during the damage step before the Dyna activates, I believe. And then it'll protect your board. So it kind of acts as like a My Body as a Shield that you can use on Raikou and Dyna, because My Body as a Shield can't be used in the damage step in Edison format. So Forbidden Chalice is kind of that effect, more or less. It also helps you play through Vanities. It also helps you play through Christia. It helps you play through your opponent's Quackimare Dragos. It's interesting, too, because if you side in Brain Control and Forbidden Chalice, you can Chalice a Drago, Brain Control it, and then banish it for your red med and reversal people. There's a lot of like different applications for this card in this specific deck that I think are very unique and important. It can also help out dupe locks. It can help out just a bunch of different stuff. If your opponent goes for like Caius, tries to banish your blue eyes, for example, you can just Forbidden Chalice the Caius, and then yeah, it's just a negate. It's just a solid negate, and it's this card usually sees play in higher power level formats like Bird Up, where you just need a negate. And this is definitely one of the highest power level decks in Edison format. So it makes sense that this deck can make the fullest use of just a generic effect negate. So yeah, good stuff. Sideboarding the extra Drago, the Prime Material, the White Knight, and the Morphing Jar as like a suite of monsters. The extra deck looks very well tuned. Having the one Wyvern for the grind games is, I think, a genius inclusion. I think this might end up being standard. It also just gives you an extra normal summon that you can summon for red med. One thing that's interesting about this deck list is it's not playing Vortex Trooper, which I know Ghost Rider's a big fan of. So it kind of is just Feast or Famine. You don't really have that extra mulligan percentage of resolving Vortex Trooper, but interesting stuff. Interesting stuff overall, and congrats to Celia Bot on yet another incredible finish, kind of solidifying themselves as the premier Dragon Turbo player. Winning Moreno Valley and getting second place at RBET Rulers is a resume that most people cannot boast. Like, that is crazy. I think we got to be reflecting on this deck a little bit more when designing sideboard plans in the future. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, Dimitri Datau, returning RBET top 8 player, RBET Rulers top 8 player. He top 8'd last RBET Rulers, and it's no surprise to see him top 8 this RBET Rulers as well, with a very unique and innovative Vayu Turbo list. He's got Icarus Attack in the main. He said it's funny because he earned his invite this year by playing Black Wings with no Icarus Attack, and he played more Icarus Attack in his Vayu Turbo deck than he did in his Blackwing deck, which is quite funny, but Icarus Attack performed very well for him on camera. It was an excellent tech choice. A lot of people did not play around it. They did not expect it. They did not see it coming. Also, the Legacy of Yatagrasu, I'm not sure how they performed for him. I'm going to be interviewing him on the channel in the coming days. We're going to be going over maybe some of his matchups, some of his matches, some of his deck choices. He's one of the most powerful Edison players. He's helped us judge previous RBET events, which means not only is he an insanely good player, but he's just an incredibly giving member of the community, and it makes me very happy to see him win this event. I'm very proud, honestly. I'm very proud of Dimitri on his success in this format. He's played a wide variety of decks to win and top tournaments. His range is incredible. It's almost unmatched at this point. He's got I don't know, just a really great resume, and I'm excited to see the future of Dimitri. He's definitely solidifying himself, in my opinion, as one of the GOATs of this format, if not in the GOAT discussion. I know a lot of people are having kind of fun with the GOAT discussion. Who's the best player in Edison format right now? Is it Dimitri? Is it ProStorm? Is it, I mean, Celiabot even getting first at RBET Moval and then getting second place at Rulers? That's an incredible finish. Is it Carpath? Carpath, who is topped with the most unique deck list of all time. Is it? I don't know. Who is it? Who's the GOAT? I don't know. There's definitely a GOAT discussion to be had coming up. But yeah, I think really sick deck list. One thing I do want to point out is the use of Breaker the Magical Warrior and Compulsory in the sideboard. These are cards that I had been saying on stream are going to have success. That it is a very potent sideboard combination to have Breaker plus Compulsory, especially against the Vayu Turbo Mirror. It comes in, it improves going second drastically. It improves the compulsories drastically when they maybe would be -1s to stop normal summons. You can bounce your own Breaker, and then the compulsory all of a sudden turns into a +1 again, which is really, really solid. So yeah, I think this sideboard combination is something we're going to see a lot more of in maybe not just this deck, but a bunch of other decks as well. In Fairies, maybe, in Quick Draw, maybe, who knows? I think, once again, this is actually the second year that Breaker plus Compulsory as a sideboard package won RBET Rulers. So when I'm sitting here telling you guys the text, telling you guys this is tournament winning tech in the videos, I'm not wrong. Like these are the cards that I think people should be adapting more and more of. It's now won the most prestigious tournament back to back. Maybe I'm spitting. Maybe I'm cooking. Maybe I am cooking. All right. Solid stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, this community is the best community in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, in all of trading card games. The Edison community is the most based. You guys are awesome. You show up for every event. You guys are ride or die for your format. You guys play the coolest decks. You innovate the coolest decks. You guys are always out here cooking. And I can't thank you guys enough for such an amazing and successful season in terms of viewership and just community growth. So thank you guys a lot. This stuff doesn't happen without you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.